Welcome to the Lettering Animation Mini Course. Whether you're a lettering artist and you want to bring your lettering to life with amazing animation and stand out in a crowd, or you're a designer who wants to add animation to your client services, this is the place to be. The place to learn how to make amazing animations in After Effects and expand your offering to your clients. I'm Austin Saylor, and I've been a motion designer for about 5 or 6 years-ish. Isn't that how new skills kind of begin, as a hobby, as a thing that you get into, and you don't know exactly when you started? Anyways, I've been niching into lettering animation for 3 years and teaching for almost 3 years as well. I've been doing blogs, tutorials, vlogs, a course, and one-on-one teaching. This is the first in a series of 3 videos in this mini course, where I'll be teaching you how to make beautiful animations with your lettering. So how do you learn how to animate your lettering in After Effects, and in doing so add this new valuable skill that you can offer your clients? The goal of this mini course is to show you those critical things you need to know to create fun, natural looking animations. When you know how to make basic shapes move according to animation principles, you can feel confident going into lots and lots of different types of animation projects that are thrown at you. Now, I didn't always know how to make my animations look good. When I started doing this 5 or 6 years ago, sometimes I'd accidentally make something that looked really cool, probably because I followed a tutorial very directly. But most of my animations on my own fell flat. I knew there was something that was missing, and I wanted to be able to bridge that gap between what I knew was good and what I could do with my skills. I wanted to consistently make work that just didn't suck. You've probably done what I did. You've watched hours and hours of tutorials on YouTube, randomlynda.com, and Skillshare courses. And don't get me wrong, there are some golden nuggets to be found in all of those resources, but it can be so frustrating to try to learn animation from scratch using these resources. Trust me, I've been there. Let's just dig right in. In this first video, we're going to focus on understanding the core 4 things you need to know to make some sweet animations. All right, so the core 4 things you need to know to make amazing animations is: number 1, you need to know the technical. You need to know After Effects. You need to know the graph editor and keyframes. You need to know some technical stuff. Number 2, though, you need to have an animation eye. You need to develop your eye for animation and know what looks good out there. Number 3 is consistency. You need to be consistently working on your animation. It doesn't mean you need to be doing it all day, every day, but consistently working in After Effects will improve your skills tremendously. Number 4 is you need to know the next thing. I'll get to that later. People debate, though, about number 1 and number 2. Should you learn the technical first, the technical skills, or should you, develop your eye? I'm a big believer in dipping your toes in the creative process, i.e. the technical, while you're developing your eye, your animation eye, for learning what looks good out there. There's no moment of arrival when it comes to your animation eye, so that doesn't make sense to me to focus solely on that before you dig into the technical. That takes us to number 3, consistency. This is where you have to put into practice what you're learning. The creative community as a collective has wasted way too many hours learning, quote unquote, but not actually putting into practice what you've learned. I am guilty as anybody, and I know you are too, but you have to learn and practice, and practice, and practice. In fact, that's one of my things. Everything is practice. Practice isn't scary, so that's why I kind of think of it as practice. Everything you do leads you to the next thing you do in one way or another, so I just think of everything as practice. And speaking of taking you to the next thing, core 4 is the next thing. You don't need to know everything right now. You just need to know what to do next. This is relevant in so many things in life. Don't get caught up on feeling like you need the entire roadmap in front of you. I don't know. We often let this keep us from moving forward. But the most important thing is to know the next step and to take it. So in today's lesson, we're going to get you caught up on the very basics of the technical in After Effects. Let's jump right into After Effects here. This is the After Effects GUI that you see when you open up After Effects. I've got a couple of extra things that you don't need to know right now, but it's kind of neat. There are a lot of people that put in extra work and build these plugins and whatnot. I'll show you some of that later, but first I want to introduce you to the project panel. This is a really brief introduction to After Effects. We'll jump right into some animating really soon. This is the project panel. This is where all of your graphics, logos, compositions, and assets go. This is your timeline panel. This holds all of your layers, just like Illustrator and After Effects. And this window right here shows you what your composition looks like. And in After Effects, there are compositions, not artboards. And so each composition has its own timeline, and then you see what's inside the composition up in this window. And those are the essential panels in After Effects you need to get going for this mini course. Now let's take a look at keyframes. Keyframes are the main way to animate in After Effects. So first we need something to animate, so let's draw a square. We'll choose the rectangle tool. We're going to use Shift to make this a square. And the first thing I'm going to tell you about this shape layer, that created a great shape layer for us, but we're going to want to put this crosshair thing, this is called the anchor point. We're going to want to put this in the middle. So we're going to use the pan behind tool, or if you hit the letter Y, you can get that. Hold Command and drop it right in the middle. And the reason we want to put this in the middle for now is if we want to rotate this guy, we want to rotate it from the middle. And if we scale, we want it to scale from the middle. Sometimes you might want to scale or rotate from a corner. And that can be cool. But I want to be at least somewhat intentional about it. It can get annoying if your keyframe is out here and then you end up rotating it. So put the keyframe somewhere central to begin with, and we'll put it off to the side. Now we need to decide what property we want to animate. Let's toggle down and look at the transform options here. So these are the properties that we can animate. I think right now we're going to animate position. We've got anchor point, we've got position, scale, rotation, and opacity. Let's start with position. We're going to want to put the playhead somewhere at about 1/4 of a second perhaps. And if you click the stopwatch icon, that gives us the first keyframe. Now we'll move the playhead up to about 1 second, and we click and drag, and I'm holding Shift to make sure it stays horizontal. And we'll drop it at the end here. And now if I hit the space bar and I make sure that my work area here is not too wide, I hit the space bar and we have an animation. It's not a very good animation, but an animation nonetheless. Having a bad animation is better than having no animation. We can't make no animation better, but we can make a bad animation better. And speaking of making it better, we're going to make it better by applying easy ease to these keyframes. So I've selected both of these keyframes by clicking and dragging around them, right-clicking, hit keyframe assist, and then easy ease. You can also see that you can hit F9, or if you're on a Mac, you might need to hit function F9. And you see these keyframes changed and they look like an hourglass. This means that they've been given ease on them. Now if we hit the space bar, this animation looks a lot better. So let me undo so you can see what it looked like before. It's very rigid, sharp, it's not smooth. And then if we go back here, hit F9, now we're going to see this animation feels a whole lot better. All right, so easy ease is the best way to easily make your animations look a lot smoother. Now let's go back again at what these keyframes look like beforehand. You see they look like diamonds. Diamonds mean that these are linear keyframes, and it means that in between this time and this time, this property changes at the exact same pace the whole time. But that doesn't happen very much in the natural world. Things don't start at the exact same speed that they're moving when they, and then stop at, at going the same speed. Think of a car starting off at a red light. When it starts going, it's going to start going really slowly, and then it slowly accelerate and go faster and faster. And then when you come to this red light at the end, let me demonstrate this as if this was a car. We'll put the eases on here. It starts at a red light, it starts off going slow, it goes faster in the middle, and then it slows down gradually at the end. And so that's what our easy easing does, is it starts to mimic real life, which makes your animations look better. In the next video, we'll dig more into how to get more granular control over your animations and mimic real life, or even exaggerate it effectively. But let's go ahead and dig into some actual lettering animation, shall we? So what we've got here is the letter A drawn inside of After Effects. And it was drawn using the pen tool. So you can click up here on the pen tool or click G for, I don't know why it's G, but that's what it is. And if you hit it twice, you'll end up with this mask feather tool, which is not at all what we want. We just want the pen tool. So make sure you have the pen tool icon selected. You'll want to turn off your fills and turn on a stroke. Change your stroke to whatever you want. And then you would just start designing your letter, something like this. And then later I hit the V tool, just like in Illustrator and After Effects. You can start to manipulate your Bezier handles here. And as you may know already from lettering, it's nice to keep your Bezier handles going north and south and east and west. Give yourself as few keyframes or as few Bezier or vector points, sorry, as you can. It'll make this really smooth. And then dig right into this contents shape, and then where is the stroke? Stroke. We're going to want to change butt cap here to round cap. And the reason is, let me undo. If you don't, you get this flat edge on your strokes, and that just doesn't always look great. It's not my favorite thing, and I don't know, I'm just much more pleased with, my eyes are much more pleased using round caps instead of butt caps. All right, so I've finessed this A, we've got this A out here, and we're going to learn how to do this write-on effect. So we're going to toggle down this layer, and right here where you see this word add, there's a triangle button. We're going to click here, and this lets you add either a shape, a fill, stroke, gradient, or all of these other little elements. We're going to use this thing called Trim Paths. This is the way we're going to do almost all of our write-on effects, and especially today. So what happens here is the start is going to be the first keyframe that was, or the first vector point that was laid down. End is going to represent the last one. And offset kind of changes where the start starts and the end ends. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to look at the end right now. So the end is at 100%. If we drag it backwards, we'll see that it's going away from the end towards the start. And you can imagine now that if we have a keyframe set for the end being 0%, we move this ahead to about a second. And now we change the end up to 100%, and we play through. We've got a little write-on effect. It's not the most beautiful thing in the whole world, but you know what? It is writing on, and how cool is that? So we know that we can make these a lot smoother by adding Easy Ease. There we go. Pretty cool. That is one of the fastest ways to make a write-on effect using a mono width line like this. And I think that is one of my favorite ways to teach beginning After Effects animation, lettering animation, is you get a really quick win just by using trim paths on top of this mono width stroke. One thing that I will say now is, like, you don't, it's not impressive when this kind of just goes away and then starts animating on again. We could go ahead and animate this off now using the start property. So if I click stopwatch, we get a keyframe. Let's move ahead just a little ways. And now I'll animate this up to 100%. So the start gets closer to the end and it goes off. We'll do the same. I'm hitting F9 to Easy Ease out. And hit the start or play button. We have it animating on and animating off. And that is a really sweet little write-on effect. And you've got it looping. I think it's awesome. Now let's see what this process looks like to animate a word or a couple of words, not just one letter, this all of a sudden feels a little bit more intimidating. So I've got all of these letters separated and labeled. I really like to keep my After Effects files clean. So the word lettering has a color set to it, and so I can easily see where I am and what's going on. So the first thing we're going to do is just animate the letter L. We're going to add trim paths the same way as we did before. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's make sure the playhead is up at the beginning. Maybe I'll put it a few frames in, and we'll give it a first keyframe. And this is a handy dandy keyboard shortcut, Command-Shift right arrow, that moves your playhead 10 frames. So I'm going to go up 20 frames, and I've already made a mistake, but watch this. I can hit this diamond button here, which is a linear keyframe. That gives us our linear keyframe where the playhead is. And now I'll go back. I can hit Command-Shift left arrow, or just drag the playhead back to the beginning keyframe here, or even click on these arrows. So we've got this keyframe here, and I want this one to be at 0%, so that we get this little write-on effect. And here we go. We're going to do the easy ease again. All right, so that's pretty smooth. Now we want to apply this to the rest of the letters. You know what? I'm going to put these back at the beginning, and I'll show you why in just a second. So we can copy properties and animated properties from one layer to a lot of other, or the rest of these layers all at once. So I'm selecting trim paths, I'm hitting copy. I'm going to move the playhead back to the beginning, because just for an example here, if I have the playhead out in the middle here and I hit Command V to paste, it's going to put those keyframes wherever the playhead was. So we're going to go back to the beginning, and we're going to Shift select all of these. I'm locking these dots because they're not strokes. We'll touch on that later, but I'm going to select all these layers that I want to add this trim paths to, make sure the playhead's at the beginning, and hit paste, Command V. Now if you hit U, U brings up the used keyframes. So we've got all of these keyframes animating on. I'm going to scroll down here again to the dots for the eyes and just turn them off so they're not distracting. So we've got this thing. We've got two words animating on really quickly. We've got all these smooth animations. But what's going to make this better is using an animation principle called overlap. We don't want all of this happening all at the same time. Again, in the real world, anything that's growing or building or whatever, they don't happen all at once. So we want to stagger this stuff. Now we're going to select all of these layers again. Since I've locked these layers, if I hit Command A, we'll select all of the layers that we want. We're going to put the playhead back at the beginning. And now let's hit U again just to like close those up so it's cleaner and easier to see here. And if we hit the Alt and right bracket key, that trims these layers so that they're only one frame long, which may seem really strange, but there's this cool thing. We're going to select all of them again, Command A, and right click, keyframe assist, and sequence layers. We're going to say, let me pull this over here. We're going to say OK. And what this does is it puts the beginning of the next layer at the end of the last layer. And since we put them all down to one frame, they're now all one frame long. And if we hit select all with Command A, then we can click right at the edge of one of these and drag them all the way out. Move the play or the work area out longer, and let's see how this looks. And I think that's looking pretty cool. That didn't take long at all, and we've already got two entire words animated on with really smooth animations. The only thing now is to add these dots back in. So let's see, when do these animate on? Maybe we'll have this dot pop in here. If I hit Alt left bracket, that cuts that layer off right here, so it won't show up until the layer shows up. Oh, this one's the one on the bottom, so we might want this one coming in later. Right there is fine. Right about at the same time as the eye starting to draw on. And for this one, maybe right here. You can also just drag the end of a layer And now I want to show you how to export this out. One of the most popular ways to get an animation, a short looping animation, is to do a GIF. Unfortunately, After Effects doesn't have an easy way to just animate or export a GIF unless you buy this plugin called GIF Gun, which is great, but I want to show you the free way to do it, just in case you don't want to invest in that. If you make a lot of GIFs, I highly recommend getting GIF Gun. You can find it at aescripts.com. I'll put a link below. So we're going to go up to File, Export. We're going to go ahead and add to Media Encoder. And sometimes this can take just a minute to open, so don't get worried when it takes a second. You can see that it's coming up, and it'll take a second for this animation, this composition to actually pop in here. And you want to make sure that you've got H.264 selected and match source high bitrate. Now we're just going to give this a name. Let's put it on the desktop. Lettering animation is fine. And we'll hit the play button. This will go ahead and render out your video as an MP4. All right, so now we're going to open up Photoshop, and we're going to open this lettering animation MP4. So if you hit play, it'll play through the animation in After Effects. If you don't see your timeline down here, make sure you go to Window and make sure timeline is checked. Now, I didn't take the time to animate out, but I just want to get through this and make sure you know how to export this video and then create a GIF. So now we're going to go to File, Export, Export As, or I actually like to do Save for Web Legacy. It's all of the keys that if you want to do the keyboard shortcut, Command Shift Alt S. Now we're going to choose up here in the preset option. Since this only has 2 colors, maybe we can just get away with 32 GIF 32 dithered. All right, so this means that we have 32 colors, which you do need more than 2 colors to make this look smooth because there's all the little pixels in between white and blue. But 32 should be enough to make this look good. Now, we don't necessarily need our image size to be this large, so maybe we could make this dribble size image 800 by 600. And the last thing we need to make sure you push here is changing looping options to forever. I don't know why Photoshop doesn't default to that. I wish it did, because you almost never loop once. And anyways, that's a pet peeve of mine. Now just hit save. We're going to choose desktop lettering animation.gif. That sounds good. Now let's go to the desktop lettering animation.gif. There we go. All right, so now you've got this sweet GIF of your lettering animation. It loops, it's beautiful. Post this to Twitter, to Dribbble, get famous, get rich. I'm kind of just messing, but you know, this is a great way to get your animations out there. And because I want you to get the most out of this mini course, I'm giving you homework. I want you to make your own write-on animation using trim paths, easy ease, and this overlap technique. If you're already comfortable with trim paths, go ahead and push yourself. Below this video, you can download this After Effects file to get you started. Most of this lesson landed in part 1 of the Core 4, but we've also touched on the animation eye as well, talking about things that look more realistic and more natural. That's really the point of animation. We want it to feel good, and things that feel good are things that, you know, have some level of mimicking or at least exaggerating what happens in the real world. So I can't wait to see what you animate for your homework. If you post it on anywhere like Dribbble or Twitter or Instagram, tag me. It's Austin Saylor. Maybe use the hashtag lettering animation. I'd love to check it out. Maybe give you some feedback. Now, one important note, you don't have to learn everything in After Effects to make ridiculously good work. Some of the best animators out there that I know only know like a small fraction of After Effects. They just know it really well. But how do you know what to focus on? After Effects, after all, has a bit of a reputation for being complicated. I won't say it's not. The trick is knowing what to learn next and not getting distracted or confused by the airplane cockpit, like buttons, switches, options, effects, and knobs and whatevers. In the next video, I'm going to show you those next steps. We're going to cover the graph editor essentials that you really need to know and how that will make your animations going forward so much better. I'm also going to show you a couple of crucial graph editor plugins This is really important because it's going to take a lot of the pain of the graph editor away and speed up your workflow and make your animation life tons easier. But right now, I want to know a little bit more about you. What would being able to make natural looking, totally awesome animations of your work mean to you? Please scroll down below and tell me what you think in the comment section. And of course, if you like this video, found it useful, I would love if you could share it with your friends. Sharing is caring. Have a good one. Go make something move, and I'll see you in the next video.